the others, it seems like a problem is that it's written for much younger actors than who we actually have. These are supposed to be roughly college-age Rangers, but the dialogue feels at times like it's for middle school or junior high characters. Behind the scenes, it becomes clear that not all of the acting was the fault of the actors. Jonathan Zacher was a huge fan of the original Sentai shows, to the point where he was insisting that more and more of the storylines in Power Rangers should match those of the original Sentai. Which, from what I hear, Gal Ranger, the series Wild Force was based on, was not that great. However, Zacher's love of the Sentai shows had him actually bring in several Japanese directors who had worked on those shows, many of whom did not speak English. It really goes a long way to explain Cole's dialogue quirks after reinforcements from the future. For example, there's this classic bit.
I don't know much about spaceships or this machine empire, but I will go wherever I must to protect the Earth.
Now imagine if that was in Japanese and you were reading it as subtitles. Suddenly it doesn't seem quite as awful, does it? I will say, though, that despite the Animus arc, the poor acting, and the craptastic last 10 minutes of the end of the Power Rangers, I actually really enjoyed Wild Force. The action was fast-paced and well-scored, the group really seemed to gel on screen, though it's reported that not all of the cast got along, and the overall story wasn't too bad. Sure, there's that environmental focus again, but besides for the Animus storyline, it wasn't that overt. The characters themselves were a wide range of personalities, and the Zords being alive actually was important in this season as opposed to Lost Galaxy, where the Galactic Beasts were just alive because that's what the Sentai was like. There was some other behind-the-scenes stuff that never made it to fruition. For example, while Fox originally aired a good chunk of the beginning of the season, they didn't approve of Cole's parents truly being dead. However, the writers said that Cole's parents were actually alive and that they'd come back at the end of the season. How? Well, it would turn out that Jindrax and Toxica were actually his brainwashed parents. And knowing that, the fact that they act differently than a lot of the other destruction-oriented orgs makes a lot more sense. Disney, however, didn't know any of this, and since they planned on ending the show anyway, didn't care, and the idea that the two parents would be alive was thrown out. And I like that tragic aspect to Cole's character, that he goes on this journey to find his parents, but ultimately he can never be reunited with them. The fact that he never knew them probably helps explain why he's not truly angry at Dr. Adler for what he did to them. Admittedly, though, Cole didn't really do much to actually attempt to find his parents. He just sat down and stared at the photo. It was Alyssa who actually recommended looking into the records to find them. Speaking of Alyssa, it's hard to get a beat on her character. She's just perky, sometimes annoyingly so, but the same can be said of Danny and Max. Still, she actually was the one in the group with martial arts training, and she can be thought of the second most empathetic character after Cole. Max's character was built around his insecurities of being the youngest of the group, and while I said that it seems like the characters were supposed to be written as middle schoolers but saddled with actors that they couldn't pretend to be younger, it helps explain his friendship with Danny. Danny doesn't care that Max is younger than him, since Danny seems to suffer from a severe inferiority complex at times. Max's youthful optimism is probably why the two work so well as, I really hate to use the term, but bromance. Yes, them repeatedly saying, "Never give up," could get eye-rolling at times, but that's only because it's so simple and cheesy. But hey, remember, Power Rangers. The old days had more phenomenal, so we can live with never give up. Sadly, the Danny subplot of his relationship with the flower girl, I'm sorry, I really can't remember her name, really seems like it could have gone somewhere, at least acknowledged in the finale, but sadly it just kind of petered out. But hey, he was making progress with her, especially after she discovered he was the Black Ranger. Taylor is an Air Force pilot, and as such, she's from a military background. She says she joined the Air Force in order to locate the Animarium, since she had dreams of it since she was a child, but the Air Force still was what made her the tougher person that she was on the team. She was abrasive, strong-willed, and basically not someone you wanted to screw with. She was initially reluctant to let Cole on, but by secrets and lies, she was on board with him as leader and as part of the team. She softened a little bit throughout the season, and I'd like to think reinforcements from the future was where she had her most significant change, with Eric being an influence and showing her it was okay to like the others, though it went back and forth depending on what episode it was. Merrick is one of the lamest 6th Rangers ever. Don't get me wrong, in theory, his story is great and overall it did work. It's just it really came off like the writers were arguing about what to do with him. Well, he's a lone wolf. Okay, but he's been locked up in Zenaku for years, and he used to have a relationship with the princess. Well, then he still helps the Rangers and is friends with them. But I thought he was a lone wolf. He's both! It gets really annoying in the unfinished business episode. Why exactly does he feel responsible for Zenaku's actions? It was clear from the beginning the wolf mask was in the driver's seat. No one for an instant failed to trust him. And as I said earlier, if it was such a big deal for a princess and a warrior to get together, why the heck were they an item in the past? Princess Shayla was nothing but a load. It's not a matter of it being a Disney princess thing. She was just a poorly conceived character. She didn't do anything. She rarely had any wisdom or intelligence for the Rangers to use. She was just kidnapped and sang that stupid-ass song. Only one time in 40 episodes did she actually do something shocking, the karate kick, and that was never repeated or mentioned again. Not to mention, what exactly is she a princess of? Let's talk about some story stuff for a minute. One of the reasons that I like to praise the original Green with Evil 5-parter and say that it's well written isn't because of the dialogue. Of course the dialogue can be clunky and cheesy at times. It's early 90s Power Rangers. However, from a story perspective, it was very well crafted. The first part established the stakes. New character, cuts off the Rangers from Zordon, and is easily able to defeat them. Part 2, the Rangers start to recover a little, but Jason is kidnapped and forced to endure a fight against Goldar without his morpher. Part 3, Jason fights the Green Ranger and escapes. Part 4, the Rangers are still barely holding on, and they endure their worst defeat, but at the end they learn who the Green Ranger is. Part 5, the Green Ranger is turned to good, Zordon is restored. Each episode felt wholly unique and did different things for the overall storyline. Conversely, the Zenaku storyline seemed a bit repetitive. Rangers say they'll recover a Zord, big fight, minor, if any, revelations about Zenaku, and finally lose another Zord. That's the problem with a lot of these later seasons as I see them. There's a little bit of build-up, some interesting ideas, but in the end, it's just repetitive and the conclusions aren't all that satisfactory. It may be a bit fan-wanky, but it's interesting to note that the destruction of Animaria was apparently 3,000 years ago, which also happened to be the time of the battle on Miranoi where the Quasar Sabers were forced into the stone. And isn't it interesting to note that the Galactabeast just happened to be living Zords with a robotic animal form, just like the Wild Zords? And isn't it funny that we never did get an answer about what that incident in Lost Galaxy was, isn't it? Now, I did ask one of my sources about this, and he said that that in fact was intentional, since Amit Bhamak was trying to integrate more parts of the series together. But since I can't get confirmation from the source itself, I prefer to think of it as a funny little fan theory and nothing more. As I said last time, I believe this season to be underrated. There's plenty to dislike about it, but I think there's just as much to like. Good action, fairly strong characters, complex villains, fantastic team-up episodes, and yeah, the acting is mixed at best, but we'll see far worse in later seasons, and frankly, we've seen far worse in earlier seasons. Like In Space, this was once again going to be the final season of the show. Disney, in its purchase of several Saban series, had planned to shut down the shows and only air reruns in order to save money. While it wasn't a send-off to everything that had come before it, the team-ups allowed closure and a sense of optimism about the future of the Earth and those who wielded the power. If you skip the last half of the final episode, End of the Power Rangers is a pretty damn epic conclusion, full of tension, action, and a great last stand by the Rangers. However, once again, Power Rangers was saved from cancellation. This time, however, it came because it was suggested that the show would be a lot cheaper to produce if they moved production over to New Zealand. But we'll discuss the changes in store there when we brave the weather in Power Rangers Ninja Storm.
So guys, that was my reaction to Linkaras' history of Power Rangers Wild Force Part 3 video. So, I haven't seen all of the episodes of Wild Force. I've seen some episodes, so who knows? Maybe I'll actually enjoy it if I see all of the episodes. So, please be sure to comment down below, subscribe, hit the like button, press the notification bell to be notified about future videos, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.